Have you ever had life give you an absolute run for your money and just had things fall apart, unexplainable situations occur, and you just scratching your head like, what the hell is going on? Well, that happened to me back in 2022. And looking back at that now, honestly, I can't help but laugh at the situation. It wasn't great at the time, but to get to the point of what I mean, let's dive in. In November 2021, I felt a pull to move across the country. Now, to describe this, and I'm sure so many people have had something similar, it was just like I woke up one day and it was like, I'm going to go to this place. And the reality that I was living in that time, there was no way that I could have accomplished that or like had that come up. Like, why would that come up, right? And honestly, I had no idea how I was going to do it. I just knew that I was just going to move to this place. And also, just to point out, I didn't know the how or the when. It was just something I was going to do in time. I had a really good friend at the time, and like we were inseparable together. We were going to buy a house where I planned to live, and I was just going to get a transfer with my job. So pretty simple, pretty easy plan, right? Again, still didn't know how or when. Now, not only did life start to crumble a little bit, but that job that I had that I thought I was going to transfer with, I think it was like 4 months later, I ended up quitting that job because it was actually mentally affecting me and my mental health. And that's something that I take seriously. I don't negotiate my mental health for any person, job, or anything because I'm in control of that. That's on me. And with my friend, even though we were inseparable, about 6 months later, we kind of fell out and went on to live our own different lives. And not only that, but when I quit my job, even though I had a backup plan there available for me, I just wasn't getting any shifts. And then about a month later again, I found a job that I actually really, really enjoyed. It was very hands-on and I quite liked doing things like that. And 3 weeks later, or inside of that time, so a pre-existing injury was flaring up pretty bad. And so I had to leave, which I was really bummed about. And then life threw in a follow-up surgery for said pre-existing injury. Look, honestly, I felt pretty defeated. It was now 4 or 5 months later, and at this point, I was just trying to keep my head afloat. So this move, this place that I knew that I was going to go to one day, wasn't even on my radar. And so I had my follow-up surgery, and that again left me not being able to do too much. I was in a place where I couldn't bear any weight and whatnot. I was homebound for at least a good 4 weeks. Didn't really do anything, had to rely on outsourcing and stuff like that. And I was just trying to keep my head afloat, to be honest, just kind of trying to keep food on the table, bills paid and whatnot, but it was piling up. It was starting to get me to panic and a bit of anxiety around, fuck, like, what am I going to do? I think it was pretty close to this time. It was just after I was able to slowly, on the better end of my recovery, I had my dad's best friend come to visit from interstate. I didn't know at the time, but he was working FIFO. So FIFO, if you don't know what that is fly in, fly out work. And in Australia, that's based on working in the mining industry. Now, he wasn't an operator or anything, but he was someone who, one, knew a lot of people, and two, he was very established in what he was doing in the industry. And now this is also the same guy that got me my first beer when I turned 18. So I knew him pretty well to be able to approach him and be like, hey, let's catch up. I'd love to pick your brain about this. So I did. And what I thought would probably be I didn't really think about how long I would be with him, but we ended up talking for 4 hours. And something I'm really, really grateful for is that he didn't just sit there and hand me a gold platter of, here you go, this is what you do, I'll get you in, blah, 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 blah. He instead gave me the tools. And I understand why. I remember at the time I was kind of like expecting a bit more from him. But not only did he give me the industry real, like he didn't sugarcoat what it was like because it's glorified where I'm from. He gave me the tools, and the reason that he gave me the tools is because if I was serious about this, there were going to have to be some loops that I was going to have to face and obstacles and really want to do it. And I get that. And also, I'm a reflection of him if he puts my name out to anyone. So I took what he said and I took it on board and I was like, all right, this is it. And then I realized, because where the industry lands, or where the industry is mainly surrounding, is that place back in November that I said that I was going to move to. And then it occurred to me that this is probably how it's going to happen. Now, the important part is this was still COVID-ish times. So in the mining industry, they needed someone with an address based on the same state as where all the mines were, which was in that state that that city was in that I wanted to live in. And so I kind of got my shit together. I was like, all right, I got nothing to lose now. And I went and checked everything that I owned. I went through absolutely everything. I kept the essentials. I packed everything into my car. And at the time I had a station wagon. Decided I'm really going to do this. So I sold everything else off. I also sold everything else off because income was not coming in. And I needed some income to be able to pay my rent and all of that stuff. I did it. And I knew that I was going to make it work. So after getting that all sorted, in that time I was also applying left, right and centre for multiple entry-level roles that I could get within the industry. And again, I had the tools that I could use, so I had a little bit of an advantage, but I was still going in blind, technically speaking. And then I finally got an interview with a company, and again, back on I had to have an address that was based in this same state. That resulted in me booking a flight from one side of the country to the other and making it work. Now, with this flight, it wasn't just I would go there and come back and then sort my stuff out. I didn't have the capacity to be able to do it at the time. So that flight had to be a one-way ticket, and I needed assistance with everything else that was happening. So not only did I book that one-way flight, I then didn't get that job. That interview that I went in for, didn't hear back from them, no updates, no nothing, and again, felt a little bit defeated. But to say that I wasn't holding expectation on that interview, because you never know how it's going to go. I know how I show up as someone, but I don't know if I'm exactly what they're looking for. And that was my first face-to-face interview. So I did what anyone would, and I decided to look at something local at the time. So I ended up working in a bar just to kind of keep my head afloat and just have something coming in, and that was quite fun. And then I was still applying left, right and centre. And then finally had a bit of a breakthrough. There was a company that reached out that were seeking people to start pretty straight up. And if anyone understands the process of getting into FIFO as well, it's not something that can just happen inside of 2 to 3 weeks, even 4 weeks can be pushing it if you are completely new to the industry. From the moment that I sat down with my dad's best friend to when I finally got the call to fly up on site, it took about 8 weeks. And I personally think, as someone who is now established in that industry, that that's pretty quick for someone who lived across the state, lives across the country, didn't have any qualifications, technically speaking. I was going into an entry-level job and no experience in the industry whatsoever. So fast forward to now though, Again, as I said before, so I'm now established in this industry. I've actually stepped away from this industry to embark on something that is even more important to me. So technically, I'm in the same position that I was back in May of 2022, but at the same time, I'm not. I'm nowhere near, because the woman that I've become from that moment has established who I am today. The moral to the story is that life absolutely hammered me with continuous breakdowns, obstacles, and just, I felt pretty defeated at that stage. I'm not going to lie. I was very much questioning my decision of what I was doing and what I really wanted in my life. But everything worked out. And if you're still here, one, I just want to say thank you for hearing my experience, to understand that it doesn't matter what you go through in life, that no matter what, the circumstance will always work out. It will always figure itself out. And the best part is that you can't even grasp just how well it will actually work out for you. Because I can tell you right now, the version of me that sits here before you today, if I could go back and say something to the old version of myself, I would be like, trust the process. Because not only did the situation work out even better than I could have ever imagined, but the way that I've developed and grown as an individual from my experience then to everything else in between that, to who I am today, I'm extraordinarily grateful for every part of it. And especially in those times where we feel defeated and we feel like, what do we do? Those are the most critical, because I can tell you right now, you are this fucking close to a breakthrough. Take it from me.